The following is a presentation of the Match Talk Podcast Network. It's time for the ODU Wrestling Monarch Mattcast, a show dedicated to all things related to the Old Dominion Wrestling program. On the web at monarchmattcast.com. Now, here's your host, three-time National Wrestling Writer and Broadcaster of the Year, and 2004 ODU alumnus, Jason Bryant.
And welcome back, Monarch Nation. Another episode of the ODU Wrestling Monarch Mattcast, episode 53. Jason Bryan here with you with ODU head coach Steve Martin. Steve, you're beginning year 15 years at this. I mean, it just seems like to me just yesterday we were just bickering at you when you were on the sidelines at Great Bridge.
Yeah, back in the day. I remember that. You guys from Pocosin gave me a lot of grief.
Well, it wasn't just Pocosin, let's be clear. That was basically everybody in the Southeastern District, who, you know, your old wrestlers included, most of the Beach District, and pretty much everybody from the Peninsula. Yeah, you pretty much had it all covered.
Yeah, I guess I did. Better or for worse.
Oh, man. So starting year 15, and of the last 14 years you were on staff, for 13 of those, you had a guy working with you. His name was Mike Dixon. He recently left to take a job as the associate head coach at his alma mater at Indiana back in the Midwest. And then before we get into this year's program and the coaching hires that we've had here in Norfolk, what was it like working with Dixon all those years? I mean, he was not there the first year, but as soon as that first year was over, John Testa left, and then there was an opening for an upper weight coach, and you went up the road to Harrisonburg and lifted this guy with this glorious mustache at the time to come to ODU.
Yeah, well, I remember we were wrestling JMU, and he was the assistant coach at the time, and I remember he beat our heavyweight. Actually, it was John DeLevy, I believe. He was a police officer from Virginia Beach now, and he beat his heavyweight beat DeLita. And I'm like, this guy's really fired up and intense in coaching. I told Lee Pritzson, I said, we need to hire this guy over here as heavyweight coach because there's not a whole lot of them out there. So we went and pursued that option. I think JMU might have dropped the program that year, so he needed a home. And 13 years is a long time, a very, very long time. Although Chris Smith at Great Bridge was with me for 13 years. I was thinking about the other day. So, but to hold somebody at a D1 level for 13 years in the same position is incredible. I mean, a lot of loyalty and great organizer, great recruiter, great people person, instructor. Our loss is definitely IU's gain. I think it was a very smart move on their part.
Yeah, because this isn't the first time that there's been a job dangled in front of Dixon. He stayed at Old Dominion for in that position for 13 years. And what was the dynamic? I mean, because the first time people meet you and work with you, you take a little getting used to. I mean, what was it like with him taking to you? How quick did that take?
Dixon gets along with everybody, so that was like a zero level of getting used to. I think he's calm and level-headed, and there wasn't very much of a transition. I mean, I went up and met him up at JMU right before we hired him, and actually me and Fritz went up and saw him together, and we knew that he's pretty much the guy for the job. So, he came in, I guess, as a number two, or I don't even know, was he a volunteer? I can't even remember. I think he might have been.
Let's see. Well, technically, he would have been. I think he would have been the volunteer assistant because
I think he might have been a volunteer. Then he went to number two. Then he went to number one. And then a couple people tried to steal him. And then he went to associate head coach. He's definitely made a huge trajectory through the coaching cycle.
It's not the first assistant to end up in the Big Ten. Go figure. Matt Storniolo is now the head coach at Northwestern. He spent time there in Norfolk at Old Dominion. And of course, last thing we're going to say, he's definitely Dixon's come a long way from living over top of Gedham. I can tell you that.
Yeah, there's no question about that. There's no question about that. But Dixon's his own man. He had his way of doing things, and like I said, it's. We definitely will miss him. He's still one of my best friends in the world, and we still talk on a regular basis. So, but you can't blame him. His family's at home. I would have done the same thing. He had an opportunity to go back home, be around his father. I think 78, and his grandfather, I think, it's like 102 or something, some phenomenal age like that. So. I always joked with Dixon. I said, I guess you're going to live to be about 100 with all those strong bloodlines.
I don't know. You might have shaved a couple years off of him. It definitely is the reason his hair's not growing back. But moving forward, as we've got a new promotion, you promoted Daryl Thomas to that role, and Daryl only been with the program a short time. And what do you see in Daryl that's really going to make him, a not just a great coach in his career, but a great coach at Old Dominion?
Well, when we're going through the process, when, we had an opening, my first phone calls were to Mark Johnson, who was my mentor in college at Iowa, and was a big reason I was successful there as a student athlete, as well as, Carl Perry and, Johnson and Perry both coached Daryl, and they had nothing but great things to say about him. And, actually, Kyle Hutter kind of brought him up as he was leaving. He decided to pursue business options. And, Jordan Blanton talked very highly of him too, which is Jack Deckow's cousin. So, I had all these people ranting and raving about him, but, we definitely, I definitely had some help from Coach Johnson. There's no question. And, Carl Perry on being able to solidify Daryl, but, I've heard so many good things from them, and, he's kind of like all of us frustrated wrestlers that we did not reach our goals, in college. And I think that makes him just such a great coach because, he's driven, to helping out these kids, these student athletes, achieve their goals. And recruiting-wise, phenomenal. Organizational-wise, unbelievable. And the crazy thing is we're born on the same birthday. We're both Leos, which generally Leos have a hard time getting along when they're born on the same birthday. But Thomas is very quiet and reserved and a great analyzer, and he's a worker. There's no question. He burns the midnight oil. So, and hard work's what it's all about, to be able to get these recruits and be able to run a top-notch program and make sure that all the student athletes are getting their needs met, as well as the administration and the fans and the boosters and everything else involved.
It's also interesting as I'm also a Leo too. I'm later on in August. We won't even go there, but we had a chance to talk to Daryl prior to his wedding. He's hitched up now, and then we also talked to Steven Rodriguez, the new hire, another Illinois alum, a New York native. He was out there. We talked to him right before going to Fargo, and he was out there coaching with Team New York. And what did you see in Rodriguez that made you want to bring him aboard?
Well, basically, to be very honest with you, when this was all going through, and Mike was telling me he was thinking about going to Indiana, we kind of started to look for that number 2, and there wasn't not a ton of options out there. But again, I had, people like, Daryl say, this guy is very, very good, as well as, Coach Johnson, who knew Steven, and as well as, guys like Jordan Blanton and Carl Perry, too, that, had heard great things about him. But, we just knew that he was going to have a great dynamic, being the fact that he's from Illinois, he's an All-American Illinois, he's a young guy. And that means that he's going to be driven recruiting-wise, which I think that youth and energy is great for a program. Very, very hard worker. He's a quick learner. great in the room, great administratively. I'm very pleased with where our staff's at. They've done a great job hustling on the seniors and, as well as juniors. And so, he's learning on a daily basis. He's very open to learning, and that's what I was looking for from somebody to come in. And, very loyal, which was a very big thing of mine, and, so we're just very impressed with him and everything he's done, and obviously having previous coaching experience at Stanford definitely was a huge plus. But, and being All-American, he can be there and he can tell the guys what it's like, when you get in that blood round, what you got to do to make it happen. And the fact just that he had to move up a weight class above, he went from 141 all the way up to 65 and was very successful. I thought that was impressive as well.
The dynamic of the conference this year is changing up a little bit. Of course, Northern Iowa left to go to the Big 12 last year as an affiliate member. Missouri's still in the MAC. SIU Edwardsville has come into the MAC, but we also lost a program as Eastern Michigan dropped 4 sports, one of which was wrestling, and one of their wrestlers, Cedarian Perry, a Florida native who had went into the last year's NCAA wrestling tournament under 500, actually had a great tournament, ends up placing 8th and is an All-American, their first All-American in almost 2 decades. And after the drop of the program and the fight to try to save those programs, Perry ends up in Norfolk. And what's Cedarian Perry going to bring to the program?
I think Cedarian Perry, I know what Cedarian Perry brings confidence, because let's face it, until you place, you really don't have that true self-belief and confidence. So, now instead of, goals is being an All-American, he's trying to be a national champion, and that's what his goals are. And he's really got some great stuff. Once I got around him, I realized he really has some great technique. It just isn't what, all athleticism. He's got some very good stuff, and he's very technical, especially on his feet and in scrambling positions, and he's a beast on top. Very, very good on top. And I just think, he has, a great partner in there in Chris McCarty. And, you got all these other kids around his weight, like Mikhail McGee and, Kelly Cardinale, Savian Haywood, Steve Simpson, Trayvon Jet. And then you got Keenan Carter above him and Kevin Budak. I mean, I think it's really a great workout partner situation for him. And, that's one of the things that, he was really looking for, because he wanted to make sure he had the partners and, the people that could push him to where he needs to go. But to answer your question, I think confidence is the main factor. Cedarian thinks he can beat anyone that he's wrestling. Now, I'm not sure that was the case before he went into the MACs or the Big Tens, but he had a great MAC tournament. I mean, he got third, but however, the 1 and 2 guys in his weight classes, were very highly ranked. You had the kid from Missouri who's an All-American, then you had the other kid from, Central that was, I believe, in the top 10 at the time. And then he just got the Nationals and got on a roll. He learned a lot about it. He won that match, in the blood round in the closing seconds. And it's interesting in his philosophy, because a lot of people with 1 or 2 seconds left, they would have just waited to go to overtime. But Perry struck when his opponent was not expecting it, and that's how he won. So he's very intelligent, as far as wrestling-wise. And he definitely brings experience and credibility that weight to our team. So we're really excited for what the future holds for him. The fact that he's got 2 years to accomplish his goals, I think, is we're expecting to, he makes a jump every day.
What was kind of disturbing, I guess, about the whole thing is that Eastern Michigan, David Bolyard was MAC Coach of the Year. Luke Smith had been on the staff at Old Dominion. He was up there. I mean, they were gaining some momentum, and from a conference standpoint, this really is a blow to the conference. So moving forward with that, SIUE comes in. Head coach Jeremy Spates. He was an All-American at Missouri. His dad was a longtime coach, Cornell and Oklahoma, among other places. And what's SIUE and maybe specifically Coach Spates going to bring to the dynamic of the Mid-American Conference?
Well, Spacer, I've known him since my first year at ODU. I tried to recruit him as an assistant. But then his dad talked him into going to OU. I mean, he was on his dad, and he didn't even, his dad that wasn't even thinking about bringing him on until we started to recruit him to be an assistant. Then all of a sudden, before I know it, my man's at OU. Because we thought we were going to get him, but Jeremy is a lifelong, friend. I watched him compete in high school. I think he's wrestling around the same time as the nephew Michael, and or actually Michael wrestles older brother, I believe.
Yeah, Justin.
Yeah, and then, but yeah, Jeremy had that dynamic. He went from Oklahoma to Missouri and wrestled for Fritz. He left Oklahoma. He was wrestling for his daddy, and then went wrestle for Brian Smith and Shooter at Missouri. And so, I've known him for quite a while. But definitely one thing is Jeremy gets along with everyone. Everyone likes him. He's a great recruiter. I think he's put together a great staff out there, and good fundraiser budgeting, and I know I talked to him the other day, about 2 or 3 days ago, about a couple situations, and he's going to get SIU nothing but better. There's no question. And so I'm really excited to get him in the conference, not only from being a personal friend, but knowing that he's going to raise the level of our conference and make us have to work a little bit harder.
Now, as we move into the season, just running over through some schedule things that we'll see this year that are a little different from the past this year. Going to head to the Princeton Open early November before the home opener on the 11th of November against Missouri. Then going back to the Navy Classic. That's something you guys did last year. Going on the road to Northwestern, hosting NC State. Reno Tournament of Champions. That's a new one this year. We'll come back to that. Of course, the Midlands, and then get into the meat of the schedule with the MAC before closing out with non-conference opponents, Navy, American, and Drexel. So the makeup of the schedule this year, what's the strategy behind it, and what is the goals of this type of, open tournaments, dual meets, invitational tournaments? I mean, the way the schedule's mixed up.
Well, to be honest with you, Dixon did a lot of the scheduling. if you want 100% honest, but I trusted him with the schedule and to kind of mix things up because I thought we needed a new look, and I think Reno's a new look for us. There's no question. And the Princeton Open, the coaching staff at Princeton, I have great respect, for the whole staff. And, they were kind of getting on us, why don't you come up here? Why don't you come up here? And, Dr. McLaughlin is involved in the program too. And he's a lifelong friend, from Robbie Larimore. And I've been friends with him for years, since he was at his days in William and Mary. So, we thought that the Princeton Open would be a great pick. Navy, I like how they run that tournament. There's a couple Big Ten teams in there. And, you get your matches in, and, of course, we have the brutal schedule of having, to wrestle Missouri and NC State in November at home. And I wouldn't have it any other way because, in order to be the best, you got to beat the best. And, we're severely going to be tested and obviously not favored in either match, but our kids are definitely looking forward to the challenge of both teams to see where you're at. You got to see where you're at in November, I believe. And then, of course, Storney out Northwestern, who was a former assistant, and I think was very instrumental in helping Ryan Williams make it to the national finals. I have a lot of respect for him, and we wrestled them in a duel at our place, so we definitely wanted to return the duel for him because I think he does a phenomenal job too as well, all around from recruiting and, just running a total program that gets the best out of the student athletes. And, and then the Reno tournament, obviously, we're going to see teams that we don't see during the year. And I thought that was a great pick. As far as Midlands, we'll probably send a select group of people. I think it'll kind of depend on how their bodies feel, when we do that, because we do have a turnaround about 4 or 5 days later where we're on the road against Central and maybe Northern Illinois, I believe. I'm not quite sure. But I know we go on the road, then we come back home, and, the Virginia Duels is always a great tournament to wrestle at home. And, of course, Mike McCormick is making the thing as tough as possible. I think there's a bunch of top 10, 20 teams in it. So, the Virginia Duel is always a good homecoming for us.
One big thing on the schedule is at the very end of it, March 8th and 9th, Old Dominion will be hosting the Mid-American Conference Tournament, the MAC Tournament, at the TED. And this is a big one because the last time conferences came around, it was in the old conference, and things didn't work out. Now we finally get to showcase the MAC Tournament in the TED. How excited are you for this?
Oh, I think it's awesome. I mean, the TED is a great competition venue. I think the fan experience is going to be unbelievable. There's so many hotels within 4 to 5 miles of the event. And then you have Waterside that's been renovated in the whole downtown area, from the Main and the Grain and all the, spots where people can, the fans will just have they'll be able to have a great social event as well as watching the wrestling. And, we're having it on Friday and Saturday, and so we could work around some scheduling with some other basketball events going on. So our admin, we're indebted to them to working with us as really as well as the MAC conference, because the MACs are generally Saturday and Sunday, but we're flipping around. We're going to do a Friday, Saturday. And, the state tournaments are going to be over with a couple of weeks, and we're looking for big turnout there. So we're excited not to have to travel to conference tournament. There's no question about that.
Yeah, it's been a while. Matter of fact, the last time ODU hosted was the year Ryan Williams made the NCAA finals. And to tie that all together, he's going to be a inductee into the ODU Sports Hall of Fame this year. Last year, my college roommate Jeff Rusak went in. This year, Ryan Williams goes in. So to dial it back around, bringing everything back, we also want to thank the administration. That's going to be a big part of this. Reagan Hill, of course, the Associate and Senior Women's Administrator, Rick French of Operations, and Drew Jacobs, who's the Facilities and Event Coordinator, also going to serve as a tournament director. So a little extra work for the ODU admins this year when it comes to wrestling.
Yeah, but in talking to Rick French today, we actually have a MAC meeting, a MAC tournament meeting next week. The MAC conference is very helpful, and they have things already set up on actually how to run the tournament. We actually had Drew Jacobs and Reagan Hill go with us to the MAC tournament last year to see the setup and the events. And Reagan also went to the NCAA tournament with us, and she was just kind of shocked, about the 17, 18,000 fans there. You kind of got to go to figure it out if you've never been to a wrestling event at the NCAA tournament. So they she gets what it's all about. And, Drew understands the mechanics because they did a blind run while they're there with the people, from Central that were fortunate enough to help us. So yeah, it's a lot of work, and there's sponsorships involved and, all kinds of complicated stuff that's way above my pay grade. But, they're really excited to host it. And I think we're going to have an awesome event, and we're going to have a lot of local fan support. I think the local people are really going to be excited. So, especially that Friday event, we might have some people getting out of school early to, go check it out.
Yeah, that's on the definitely. You got Hampton Roads taken care of. The southwest portion of the state's going to have to fight over 2 other tournaments, but we won't talk about that. But I want to dial it back to Ryan Williams for a minute as we wrap up on this episode. And as far as going into the Sports Hall of Fame, and just tell a little bit of the backstory for those who Ryan's been on the show before and talked about coming from Pennsylvania, but the story about how you recruited Ryan Williams to Old Dominion is one that's its legend grows year after year. But you're a PA state tournament, you run into a dad that and you're like, hey, you need to take a look at this guy. I mean, just what was it like to recruit Ryan Williams and then to ultimately have him go from essentially a books kid, maybe, a little bit more than a walk-on, to the NCAA finals?
Well, we were coming back from Hershey, and I believe it was me and Corey Ace. Yeah, it was me and Corey Ace. And we're hungry, and it's about 10 o'clock at night, so we decided to stop into a restaurant/tavern, and we walk in, and everybody looks at us when we're walking in because we're outsiders. And I didn't really feel comfortable. I generally feel comfortable in most places. And we kind of walk in and scan it, and I turn around and walk out, and I see Old Dominion in the back of my jacket. They're like, hey, coaches, come on over here. And so I end up talking to Bobowitz, who runs, Diesel, Team Diesel, and he said, I got a guy that blew out his elbow that was a 7th placer in PA States last year that would have placed in the top 3 this year. Of course, I don't know who this guy is or what he's, selling me at the time. But I wrote down his number and I followed up on the following Monday. And I called up the kid and I said, let's set up a visit. And I believe his other option was Ryder, possibly. But they came down, and I could tell he's an outstanding kid as far as a citizen and, a great, a good student. And, we really didn't know what we were getting. We had no clue. And then he gets on campus, and he ends up winning the starting position. And he started off at maybe like 10%, but by the end of his career, he was in a full. And so his ascension, I think, he's kind of disappointed in his freshman year. He didn't qualify. And then his sophomore year and junior year, he qualified for the tournament. And then I think what put Williams over the top is he finally figured out after 4 years that he might want to listen to coaches and get his weight down to about 5 or 6 pounds because he's hitting walls and matches. When he got his weight walking around to 146, he was so cut up. Of course, people were like, how is this guy this big? I mean, after the semifinals, they took him back there and drug tested him, but he was all freaking natural because he did everything right. And I think he had great workout partners. And again, I think Storney helped him out a lot. And ironically enough, about a month ago, I was in Illinois and I ran into the guy he wrestled in the quarters.
Ryan Prater.
I ran into Prater at a camp. And I didn't really recognize who he was. And then, the guys running the camp that's Ryan Prater. So I walked over and said, hey, are you Prater? He's like, yeah. He goes, you got a picture of me staring at the lights in your room in a cradle. And I was like, Prater, you were pinned. And they wouldn't call him.
Yes, he was.
He was stuck for 10 seconds. But Williams was in the cradle for 2 minutes. And so his forearms, and he just told me the story a week ago, I never even knew it. His forearms were so tight, he got ridden like a dog in the second period. And then the kid picked top in the third period because he's very good on top. And then Willie got out with like 1 second left. And that was, I can remember Mark Johnson and Carl Perry over in the corner. And, we had beaten him at the Virginia duels by maybe 4 or 5 points, kind of handled him. But that cradle just took it out of him. So once he got past that match, I knew he had a chance to do it. But, the real story behind him is in December at the Midlands. Somehow he's ranked in the top 8 in the country. And first round of pigtails, he draws a returning All-American, the kid from Arizona State.
Chris Druin, yeah.
Somehow
They were both
drew
ranked in the top 10, and there was a pigtail.
Yes. And so Ryan lost in sudden victory, and he had to come back and wrestle all these matches. And during the course of the tournament, he evolved. And I guess on the backside, he just said, the heck with it. I'm going to attack. And he scored more points in that tournament than I've ever seen him score in his life from his feet. He was on fire. And although he got beat in the semifinal consos and ended up getting 5th, he put more points on the board. So when we got back to ODU, he was running around, doing the warm-up. I said, come here, Williams. And he come over and he said, yeah, coach. I said, you're going to be a national champion this year. And he looked at me, and he'll tell you to this day, that's the first time he believed he was going to be a national champion. Because I wasn't going to throw it out there until I really thought it. And from there, because I remember very vividly, and he would tell you the story too, that was kind of when he changed his mind, the heck with being All-American. Let's try to win it, and making the national finals with being 7th in PA states. They couldn't even read off his credentials at the tournament. He had no credentials.
His bio sheet was not very long. It was like, okay, 7th in state. That's it? That's all we got?
Yep. But, he's also a very successful businessman, which I'm proud of him for that fact. He works for, Mike Hilliard down at Mythics, and he's doing very, very well. He just had a child. trying to get a donation out of him, but he's a little tight. I think he's still kind of mad that he's only at 10% his first year. But, yeah, I called him up when he got inducted. And it's kind of funny because his wife leaked it out before the media leaked it on Facebook. So I had to call her up and joke her. But, yeah, we're proud of him getting the Hall of Fame. That's a quick accomplishment because he's only been out for, I think, 8 or 9 years. That's a pretty quick turnaround for the ODU Hall of Fame.
Information on the Hall of Fame inductions, again, can be found at ODUsports.com. Of course, that release came out in the past. And again, Willie, one of the best things about Willie was, one, the kid, I remember his freshman year, the team didn't really know what to think of him because he talked nonstop. So, of course, I got along with him great because we both talked nonstop. Plus, these giant teeth, so we called him Chompers, among other things. And then
oh my god,
yeah, Chompers, and then Spladles and all sorts of stuff. So that's a good way to end episode 53. So keep an eye on what's coming up with Ryan Williams and his induction to the ODU Sports Hall of Fame. Again, the Mid-American Conference Tournament coming up March 8th and 9th this year at the TED. Future episodes, we'll talk to staff, we'll talk to athletes, we'll also talk to administrators and alumni and get some updates on what we're going to see with tailgate. Football season's about to start. And Steve, in the moments we got left, what's the first wrestling function we've got with a football home game tailgate or something that we can throw out there to get them ready for football season?
Yeah, well, I think we have some alumni that have tailgates over there. So, Phil Cowley has one and Glenn Miller. So there'll be some tailgate going on. Like always, they're good old football games. You can't beat an ODU football game. The first time I saw one, I was just so impressed by the amount of fans that were walking around. It was an unbelievable experience. So, yeah, we're looking forward to football season, and hopefully, we can have a great one.
Show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.